For more, let's bring in Stephen Portnoy and Siobhan Hughes. Stephen is a CBS News radio White House correspondent, and Siobhan is a Capitol Hill reporter for the Wall Street Journal. Welcome. It's good to have you both. So the White House has made it very clear the United States is not sending fighter jets directly to Ukraine or establishing a no-fly zone. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki defended that stance this afternoon.
The Ukrainian Air Force has several squadrons of fully mission-capable aircraft. And although Russian air capabilities are significant, their effectiveness has been limited due to the Ukrainian strategic, operational, and tactical ground-based and air defense systems, which the United States has provided the vast majority of. So what we're talking about here is what is most effective in combating and fighting the type of war the Russians are fighting. We've talked a little bit about the attack on near the Polish border. That would not have been stopped by airplanes. That type of attack is stopped by exactly the type of assistance we've provided.
Psaki also announced the president will go to Europe next week to meet face-to-face with leaders there. Stephen, what kind of support can the U.S. provide if direct engagement is off the table?
Well, Psaki noted that the president today signed an omnibus bill that includes more than $13 billion in additional support for the Ukrainian fight. When it comes to this question of fighter jets, look, the Pentagon last week rejected this offer made by Poland to have some of their MiG fighter jets being transferred to Ukraine in exchange for American jets that would backfill the Polish fleet. The Pentagon called that an untenable plan. But today, top Senate Republican Mitch McConnell said that it was his view that perhaps that plan was still under discussion. When it comes to whether the U.S. would implement a no-fly zone, you heard Jen Psaki say that that would be an escalatory step, and the president feels it would bring the U.S. closer to direct engagement, war with Russia. The consultations that the president will be undertaking next Thursday at NATO headquarters in Brussels, Belgium, are meant to demonstrate a united front, the Western world standing up to Putin's aggression. And Jen Psaki said today that the president enjoys one-on-one diplomacy, is interested in getting directly engaged. And she also said it was her view, the White House's view, that the alliance is stronger and sticking together as a result of President Biden's direct engagement.
Siobhan, President Zelenskyy will address Congress via video tomorrow. That's the U.S. Congress. He has not been shy about calling out Western leaders for what he considers a lack of support. Are lawmakers expecting a dressing down from the Ukrainian leader?
The lawmakers I've talked to very much expect Zelenskyy to be direct, to be forceful, to even engage in, as you labeled it, a dressing down. The fact that the U.S. has nixed a no-fly zone, has nixed the delivery of those Polish MiGs, they think is in no way likely to discourage him from calling for that again. The lawmakers and aides I've talked to expect this to be a very emotional moment, a moment that puts a lot of pressure on the U.S. to engage in the ways that Zelenskyy wants it to do, or alternatively, explain why it isn't and talk up some of the alternatives. You heard Jen Psaki mention one of those, the air defense system. We do expect Zelenskyy to bring that up as well, but again, not to the exclusion of some of those other contentious areas.
Well, Siobhan, beyond the symbolic significance, could President Zelenskyy's appearance lead to any actual tangible policy changes?
Right now, no. And my read of the situation in the past few days is that the Democrats who had supported the delivery of the Polish MiGs to Ukraine are starting to pull back a little bit, starting to align more closely with Joe Biden on that question. However, the more than $13 billion in the omnibus spending bill that was appropriated, the elements of that are still under discussion. And in fact, you just saw a group of Republicans, both the Senate and the House, send a letter to the Defense Secretary and the Secretary of State laying out precisely how they would like that money used, including things like personnel along NATO's eastern flank, including things, for example, like the MiGs, including more air defense systems. And so you're going to start seeing pressure not just generally on the MiGs, but also the specific areas in which lawmakers would like that aid to be channeled.
Stephen, switching gears, Supreme Court nominee Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson met with more senators today, including Republicans Lindsey Graham and Shelley Moore. Have we gotten any indication of what issues the GOP will likely press on her confirmation hearings? Those are beginning next Monday.
Well, I think, Enrique, that they're likely to fall upon the traditional fault lines in which there are constitutional and cultural debates in this country. Think of abortion rights, affirmative action, gun rights. But beyond that, I think that there are indications that Republicans are going to press Ketanji Brown Jackson on some of the work that she did on behalf of Guantanamo Bay detainees. Yesterday, Missouri Republican Senator Josh Hawley indicated that that was a concern of his. Now, Ketanji Brown Jackson would be, if she is confirmed, the first person to serve as a federal public defender on the Supreme Court. And that is something that has been very important to President Biden. Now, Republicans have indicated they would not go after her for the clients that she had when she was a public defender or the work that she did in that capacity, because the clients that you represent when you are a public defender are assigned to you. But the indication has been aired that perhaps the work that she did in private practice, the clients she chose to take, might be something that would come under scrutiny.
Stephen, Sarah Bloom Raskin withdrew her nomination to the Federal Reserve Board today. Do we know what happened?
Well, this was the president's choice to be vice chair of the Federal Reserve, the top banking regulator in the country. And ultimately, the nomination collapsed because the nominee, Sarah Bloom Raskin, did not have the support of West Virginia Democratic Senator Joe Manchin. Manchin issued a statement yesterday that indicated that it was his view that Ms. Raskin's past statements and writings about climate change and the need for regulation to control climate change would be overstepping the Federal Reserve's mandate. And so today, the White House pulled the nomination. What this could do is it could free up other nominees for the Federal Reserve that are pending in the Senate Banking Committee, including the nomination of Jerome Powell to be serving another term as Fed chair.
And Siobhan, you mentioned earlier President Biden signing that $1.5 trillion spending package today. It did not include a request for more than $22 billion in COVID funding. Where does that request stand?
Well, the White House is putting the pressure on Congress now to find another way to appropriate that money. The White House saying that is now going to start unwinding at least one COVID program, the one that provided things like testing and vaccinations to uninsured people. It's stuck because the Republicans didn't want to fund it unless it were funded by clawing back money from state and local governments. And the Democrats felt it was so urgent that it should be treated at a minimum as a form of emergency spending that didn't need to be funded. We spoke today with Republican Senator Roy Blunt, who is one of the few Republicans who has said, yes, more money is needed. He told the White House that a potential pathway forward would be for the White House to be more forthcoming about where all of the previous rounds of coronavirus aid have been spent, because Republicans don't trust that the between $5 and $6 trillion that were previously appropriated went to good use or is entirely used. And so his position is that's the basis for the discussion. The White House perspective, this is important because the uninsured is only the tip of the iceberg. You're going to see the U.S. be unable to compete, according to the White House, for things like pediatric vaccines by the fourth quarter of 2022, monoclonal antibodies, the oral antibiotics that can treat you if you do have COVID. And so we're going to see the rhetoric likely amp up in the next couple months.
An extremely busy week in Capitol Hill. Thank you so much, Stephen Portnoy and Siobhan Hughes.
And tomorrow we'll have live coverage of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's virtual address to Congress, including reports from the White House, Capitol Hill, and the Pentagon. It all starts at 9 a.m. Eastern right here on CBS News.